Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. There is something that can really make you feel better in all different challenges. Let's say you have digestion issues, stress, anxiety. Many of us take medication. Have you thought about taking herbs, herbal medicine? I mean, it's where the meds came from in the first place, and we'll get to that. It definitely works. It definitely makes a difference. It's natural, and she practices that as an herbalist. She's also an acupuncturist and a massage therapist, and she's back with us. Rebecca Wendler-Burke joins us on the program. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Nice to be here again.
I'm so gratified that we can talk about this today because I spread the word about herbs. Met someone before we met. I met an herbalist last fall and had some issues and described those issues digestion wise. And right away, she's like, yeah, no problem. Check your mail in 3 days. I'll have it to you. And just made a concoction up. And I know for some, it sounds kind of woo-woo, like, oh, the medicine woman is, coming up with these in the kitchen and there's a pot boiling and all of it. But guess what? It worked in 2 days. And I was almost ready to go to the hospital with digestion issues and not knowing what it was. And right then, I was a big fan of all of it. But this is nothing new, right? This has been going on for literally centuries, right?
Yeah, yeah. Food as medicine or medicine as food, right? Yeah. Um, yeah, herbs have been around for a long time, probably, since we've been foraging and hunter-gatherers and things like that. There have been what we call known nods from the plant world to give us an understanding of perhaps what these herbs or plants might do for the human body. And that's called the doctrine of signatures. So that is a mechanism of looking at the physicalities of a plant and recognizing that they would do something beneficial for the body. So you can look at like walnuts, for example, they are beneficial for the brain. They also help to unblock the bowel and moisten the intestines and things like that. So that is an example of doctrine of signatures.
Wow. We're going to get to specifics on herbs in a moment and what they could possibly help treat. I don't know if I don't know if I should say the word treat, support.
Yeah, well, big disclaimer here. This is not to prevent or diagnose or anything like that. Do consult a professional herbalist for any questions concerning herbal prescriptions.
Sure. And yeah, in a moment we'll get to that, but I want to ask you. I had my herb aha moment in the fall. What was it for you where you realize, this way it totally makes a difference?
Well, I think that it was kind of an herb F up, if you will, for me.
Can't wait to hear, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So this was before I took my master's program and before I was a licensed herbalist and acupuncturist. And I had been taking a tea that had astragalus in it. So the huang qi, it is an herb to help tonify the body. Its function is to close the pores so that if you're taking it, you can kind of keep the pathogen from being able to invade your body. It's a good sort of preventative thing. It helps with excess sweating and things like that, that all would be a sign of a qi deficiency. And so I had been taking this tea and then I got sick. I got a cold and I continued to take the tea. And then, probably like 4 months later, I was very ill. I was unable to keep food and drink in my body without throwing up. I sort of like had this constant chill fever kind of component. And looking back on it now, that is absolutely a syndrome called a Shaoyang syndrome. And so what happened was this pathogen was strong enough to break the barrier that the astragalus had created. And in being in my body, my pores were not able to open in order to let the virus out or the pathogen out. And so what happened was this lingering sort of smoldering of this pathogen internally, just messing up the works. And so I
Wow.
went to an acupuncturist, yeah, and she did a point on the wrist here and a point on the foot, and that is to open the Shaoyang and the Daimai. And It took a couple of days of that. She like we actually put like tax so that I could maintain the points for a duration. And it was like a whoa, okay, like do not mess around with some of these things. Like really know their contraindications and know when they are appropriate. And if you push it, you will pay the price.
Hence the reason why we need to consult with somebody like you
Yeah.
who
Yes.
knows deeply what can help you and what. This was a weird one, though. Got to admit, this is probably one for the books. I have to admit. What do you think?
The story that I just told you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we learn about these sort of pathogenic potentials in school, but until you have something like that, you really don't know how bad it can be.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
I drink tea. I still drink coffee, decaf. But I started getting into tea when I had the stomach issue, and I was drinking tea with lemon and ginger. Just heard that ginger is good for your stomach, right?
Mhm.
And I ran out of it recently, and I was going to buy some more. Um, if you want to just give your digestion system the best support you can give it, what kind of tea would I buy next? Or should I just get the same stuff again?
Well, ginger is an amazing herb. Like it is a food, it is an herb, but it is considered in Chinese medicine the axis between the spleen and the stomach. So when you take ginger, the energy for the spleen is lifting, so it allows for the spleen mechanism to tonify the muscles and encourage qi movement to the brain and things like that. But it's also descending, so the stomach and peristalsis can work properly. So anything involving ginger is always a good one for the stomach. And then things like dandelion, things that are helpful for the liver, because the liver and the spleen sort of create um, this relationship in the body. And so when we say that someone has liver qi stagnation or that there's maybe some heartburn or some stomach fire or things like that, oftentimes it's because there's a disharmony or a miscommunication between the spleen and the liver. And so soothing the liver via something like dandelion would help for the spleen to kind of take a break and be like, okay, liver, back off. I'll get you your blood. So those two herbs are really helpful for just making that harmony in the liver and the spleen.
It seems to me, based on what I know so far, which isn't a lot, and what you're saying, that this just goes to show that everything we consume has an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's challenging, right? When we look at the fact that there are maybe 10 corporations that control the majority of our food,
Oh,
like we need a diversification in order to, make better choices. Like I sort of sometimes ask my clients, like, would you put this in your compost pile? Is this going to be something that's beneficial for your compost pile? And, if it's not, then why are you consuming it?
sure.
Like all of the plastics and things like that that we have in our environment, there are toxins.
It's to your point. So I wanted to try something different for breakfast. So I had found these vegetable patties. Now I eat meat, but I was like, well, you know what? Not a bad idea. Better to eat this, right? So Morningstar Farms, farm green packaging. I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
that's a be good. So I would occasionally, instead of getting a fast food breakfast sandwich, I would, just throw the patty in the microwave, minute 15 seconds, a little bit of cheese on top of that, maybe pepper jack cheese, a little zing to it, maybe throw on an English muffin, a treat, once a week, whatever. Sunday morning, laying in bed, have tea, have that. Then I look a little bit deeper. This is to your point. Morningstar Farms, made by Kellanova. Oh, Kellanova. I wonder what that is. Kellogg's. It's like I might as well just open up a box of cereal. But you're right. It's controlled by like 10 big companies. The majority of everything we eat, they just package it in different ways. And who knows what we're eating? And then, somebody said to me, it's like, put that aside. The fact that you're eating something that's vegetable based that tastes like meat. He goes, how do you think they did that? And that's just another thought. Just getting us back to all these herbals, came from the ground. Assuming that the source is good. I guess we need to, that's another consideration, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're taking herbs, like, there is a big consideration for perhaps the amount of lead that one might find in an herbal formulation if it comes from China, right? Yeah, the sourcing for both our food and our herbs and our supplements is something that I think we all need to take accountability for, right? It's the way
Yeah.
that we make better choices that overcome the monopoly in our food system, in our society.
Are you very, very, after all of this, learning everything that we're talking about here, are you very, very particular about what you eat?
I have to be. Yeah, I had actually the Sunday before our last conversation, I was putting my son down and he was like, "Oh, I need a snack." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's have a snack. Let's have, some apple slices, some string cheese, and these cookies from Trader Joe's that are gluten-free because I am gluten-free. I do not do well with gluten. I'm not celiac, but I have a high sensitivity to gluten. And these were gluten-free sunflower seed cookies, and I had a bite and it hit my trachea and my throat started to close off. I started to feel this, and I've never had an anaphylaxis experience before. Like, and I was like, like, whoa, like somebody stop the press. Like, I can't eat these cookies anymore. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So, and so I was at Trader Joe's yesterday and I mentioned to one of the clerks and she sent me over to customer service and they are going to do some research to see if their distributor has changed. And I thought, interesting. Like I haven't actually looked at the ingredients because it's gluten free. Like to some extent, I don't feel like I have to worry about it if it's gluten free. But you have all the other things like canola oil, or an inorganic or non-organic sunflower seed that could absolutely create, a crisis, a histamine problem in many people who are highly sensitive. So,
Wow.
mhm,
Wow.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we're all walking around, many of us potentially dealing with some challenges, whether they're gastro, whether they're physical. And let's face it, based on everything we're talking about here, it could be coming from that. All of
Mhm,
it. We, yeah, day in and day out. Oh man, yeah, my joints are killing me. Oh, I don't know what it is. It's just getting old. No, maybe it's what we're eating, right?
mhm, yeah, the mechanism of inflammation, right, in the body is nonlinear, right? Like you can have high levels of inflammation and it can affect stomach fire or it can affect your joints or, create a rheumatic kind of problem. But that's because something is dysregulated in the earth element in our mucosal lining, in our flora and fauna, in our microbiome that is, wreaking havoc on other parts of our body.
Wow. Well, let's get to some challenges that somebody might be going through and how herbs can support. And again, as we say, this is not a substitute for medical advice. This is just suggestions with herbs. Definitely talk to your medical professional. Um, Give us some examples of what herbs can do to support somebody dealing with different challenges.
Well, I will preface this whole thing by saying that in Chinese medicine, there are only a couple of herbs that would be used alone. So standalone herbs
Huh.
would be something like licorice or ginger um, or dates. And so when we look at creating a formula that is specific to someone's chief complaint, it is a formula of many herbs. It can be, two or three or four, or it can be, 10. And so there's sort of a hierarchy of how you want the chief herb to function, and then it's supporting herbs, and then the harmonizing herbs that typically are herbs like licorice or ginger. So, but another one that could be standalone, which is for cholesterol,
Hmm.
would be shanja or hawthorn. And I say this as a standalone, meaning that the entire plant can be used in its for benefit. And so
Wow.
if you get a hawthorn supplement that is considered full spectrum, you're using the twig, you're using the leaves, you're using the berry. And so what the berry does is it is an anti-food stagnation herb, and it goes through and will help clean up the arteries. So any kind of plaque or arterial buildup, it will help to eliminate and reduce. It also creates sort of an adaptogenic component to the heart, where the heart does not need as much oxygen and its output is better. And so it is a good,
Wow.
historically, hawthorn has been used for, for centuries for heart issues. And so talking about, one herb, if you choose to use it, look for the full spectrum, because then you're going to be resolving all kinds of issues related to cholesterol, heart, blood
Wow.
pressure, heart issues.
Look at how many people are on cholesterol lowering meds. And do you think, again, every situation is different. Do you feel that if somebody has a, yeah, let's say borderline high cholesterol, that if they were to take Hawthorne after a period of time, potentially that could get it down?
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But also going back to our food choices, right? Cholesterol isn't bad.
Sure.
We do need a degree of cholesterol in order for hormones to function and things like that. And that lends heavily into gallbladder health, right? How does our gallbladder emulsify fats? How does it pave the way through the body and the digestive system to metabolize hormones and fats and things like that? So oftentimes an issue involving cholesterol really has to do with the gallbladder. And I myself in my practice have seen a number of cases where I'm like, you got your gallbladder out, right? Right? For some people it's an emergency, but for others it's not. And this sort of like knee-jerk reaction from a Western viewpoint to remove something as important as the gallbladder is sort of shocking to me. So
Wow. If you're comfortable, brands, like we never know what to, how do we know that it's a same thing like, as I learned with essential oils, yeah, can be great for you. Got to be careful what you buy. And maybe it's stamped organic. Is it really? Are there some brands that you're more comfortable with than others?
yes, most
Or
of the
can we buy
brands.
them from you, actually?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can buy them from
Oh,
me.
duh.
Actually, yeah. So I know that there are a number of brands that only sell to practitioners, and in our day and age, we have that sticky wicket of Amazon that can kind of create this availability of anything on the internet. And so, some of the reputable brands that practitioners really only can get are available on Amazon, and sometimes they're not what you buy. So sometimes those supplements are they're not they're not what they say they are. So that being said, do stick with an herbalist that has the capacity to order directly from the supplier. I worked for Con Herb Company in Santa Cruz, California. They are a large herbal production company. And, so I got to see firsthand, having to test the herbs, having to taste them, having to compare from a previous lot to the lot that we were creating and things like that. So I know that the FDA was highly involved in regulation for this company, as they are for a lot of supplement companies. So that is a consideration absolutely when you're making a selection about a viable brand. I also like Golden Flower Chinese herbs. They are based out of New Mexico, and they create herbal formulas that are based on traditional formulations with a few tweaks. And I have a favorite formula through them. It's called Amber Stone Transforming Formula, that you can take it preventatively, or you can take it in a kidney stone crisis. It helps to dissolve kidney stones,
Wow.
and also gallstones. So that's one that, if you got some low back pain, you maybe have like a little stitch in your side, in addition to hawthorn to kind of just like resolve some of that food stagnation, you could think about doing Amber Stone Transforming Formula from Golden Flower Chinese herbs.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I also like one that is actually available to the greater population. I pay the same price that my clients would, and that is Swanson's online. Swanson's vitamins. They have a slew of individual capsule formulas, or just individual herbs that you can order. But that being said, if you choose to sort of be your own herbalist, know that historically and traditionally, herbs are usually a part of a formula. So you want to think about its harmonizing, and you don't want to take one thing too long or too often. You're going to kind of cause a problem. So
Yeah, well, especially with what you just said in your challenge, before you really got started into this, um, I'd be calling you, because you've been down the road, how things interact and how they're going to support. Again, the herbalists are gave me the stuff for digestion. Uh, you know, like I'm going to know. Oh yeah, let me get some cat's claw. Oh, catnip. Let me throw that marshmallow root. Going to grab some of that and
Hmm.
put that in there. Like I'm going to know that. And even if I look it up online, what is the formulation? Way out of the wheelhouse.
Hmm.
Is this something that you do as well, where you mix different concoctions and then provide them for people?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, I don't have a pharmacopoeia. I don't have a medicine cabinet with all the individual herbs. That's really challenging to keep bugs out of and like, make
Sure.
sure that they don't
Wow.
expire and things like that. But that was a big part of my master's program was literally using the raw herbs and creating formulas based on their weight and what would be considered the chief or the supporting herbs or the harmonizing herbs and things like that. So yeah,
Hmm.
but granules are a great option for that too, where, I could buy granules for individual herbs and then mix them together. And that is another interesting point. We typically tend to take things in a capsule or a tablet form, and sometimes it just becomes too overwhelming for your digestive system. So being able to either do a tincture or a tisane, right, where you boil the herbs, or even the granules is a much easier route of administration for some of these herbal formulas.
You said two words that says a lot about all of this. Master's program. Master's program. This is
Yeah,
not, Rebecca just didn't go online, took a quick, email course and said, I'm going to start doing herbs. This sounds like fun. No,
yeah.
there is deep training involved in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Even so when I graduated, I interned with a Taiwanese acupuncturist and he was sort of this like Zen Yoda Buddha guy. And at some point he was like he was trying to help me augment my understanding of herbs. And he asked me, he's like, "So, if you have a hot, a wind heat sore throat pathogenic invasion, do you only use cold herbs?" And I was like, yeah. And he's like, "No." So, and his methodology was that with I so it's kind of Marxist. It's kind of the way that things are. So his rationale was, if you are an undercover policeman trying to break up a robbery, you don't go into the robbery looking like a policeman. You go in looking like an undercover, you look like a robber kind of thing. And that's so that you can invade and get into the space without alarming or like shutting down
Sure.
the organization. So
Wow. Interesting
yeah,
analogy.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Well, it feeds into like the mode of production, right? Like where we sometimes find ourselves in society where we are enslaved by the modes of production, and sometimes it's a revolutionary thought to use the modes of production to liberate oneself.
How do we find you?
My website is rwbacupuncture.com. You can look me up on YouTube. Now I have a bunch of interviews such as this one. There's also an Instagram handle called TheSharpAcupuncturist, where I don't have too many posts, but you can find me there. But everything you need to know is on my website.
Yeah, this is it's a game changer. It's so crazy how, again, centuries ago, this is what people were doing. This is what supported them medically, all of that holistically. And then we got away from it, but we're still talking about it and it
Yeah,
works. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's amazing what, the revolution in terms of progress and consumerism and all marketing and all of that. Throw me some cat's claw, man. My stomach is bothering me. And I'm good, and it works. And oh, side note, was taking Nexium for a long time. Chemical,
mm,
chemical, chemical. Why? Why do you want to do that?
yeah, yeah,
Definitely. Uh,
yeah. Well, in our society, right, we've kind of lost touch with the idea of prevention. And in our Western mentality, we look towards things that are drug-like when the whole time maybe we should have been doing something preventatively, such as making proper food choices and, having the good cholesterol and not demonizing it and, not prioritizing sugar over certain fats and things like that. So we find ourselves, trying to approach a problem that could have had a mitigation, long before it became a problem. And now we're looking at it from the lens of like reactionary Western medicine where they throw a drug at it versus, trying to kind
Sure.
of do the right thing according to traditional Chinese medicine and five elements. So
And many of us are sick and have chronic issues, and there is a reason for it. Thank you so much for today. Learned so much, and always great talking with you. You're very clear. A
oh,
lot of
thank you.
a lot of this can get a little complicated, but
it,
right? But you make it clear,
yeah, yeah,
and I
it's
appreciate
very
that.
complicated. And yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Again,
I do try to
again,
do that.
master's program way above my pay grade. I just sit here and talk. I mean, she does all the studying. Thank you so much for today. Looking forward next time we get together.
Thank you, Steve. Have a great
Thanks.
day.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.